Jem would have willingly beaten a retreat, but being surrounded by the two grooms and Sparshot, who only wanted a sign from Nowell to secure him, or knock him down if he attempted to fly, he gave a surly intimation that he was ready to speak. "You are aware that a dyke intersects the heath before us, namely Worston Moor?" said Potts. Jem nodded his head. "I must request particular attention to your plan as I proceed, Master Nicholas," pursued the attorney. "I now wish to be informed by you, James Device, whether that dyke cuts through the middle of the moor, or traverses the side, and, if so, which side. I desire also to be informed where it commences and where it ends." Jem scratched his head, and reflected for a moment. "The matter does not require consideration, sirrah," cried Nowell, "or you must have an instant answer." "So you shan," replied Jem. "Well, then, the dyke begins near a little mound called Turn Head, about 100 yards from our dwelling, and runs across the easterly side of the moor till it reaches Knowle Bottom." "You will swear this?" cried Potts, scarcely able to conceal his satisfaction. "Swear it, ay," replied Jem. "Ay, we'n all swear it," chorused the hinds. "I am delighted to hear it," cried Potts, radiant with delight, "for your description corresponds exactly with Master Nowell's plan, and differs materially from that of Mistress Nutter, as Squire Nicholas Assheton will tell you." "I cannot deny it," replied Nicholas, in some confusion. "I should ha' said westerly instead of easterly," cried Jem; "boh yo puzzle a man so wi' your lawyerly questions, that he dunna know his reet hond fro his left." "Yeigh, we aw meant to say westerly," added the hinds. "You have sworn to the contrary," cried Nowell. "Secure him," he added to the grooms and Sparshot, "and do not let him go till we have completed the survey. We will now see how far the reality corresponds with the description, and what further devilish tricks have been played with the property." Upon this the troop was again put in motion, James Device walking between the two grooms, with Sparshot behind him. So wonderfully elated was Master Potts by the successful hit he had just made, and which, in his opinion, quite counterbalanced his previous failure, that he could not help communicating his satisfaction to Flint, and this in such manner that the fiery little animal, who had been for some time exceedingly tractable and good natured, took umbrage at it, and threatened to dislodge him if he did not desist from his vagaries, delivering the hint so clearly and unmistakably that it was not lost upon his rider, who endeavoured to calm him down. In proportion as the attorney's spirits rose, those of James Device and his followers sank, for they felt they were caught in a snare from which they could not easily escape. By this time they had reached the borders of Worston Moor, which had been hitherto concealed by a piece of rising ground, covered with gorse and brushwood, and Jem's hut, together with the clough, the rindle, and the dyke, came distinctly into view. The plans were again produced, and on comparing them, it appeared that the various landmarks were precisely situated as laid down by Mistress Nutter, while their disposition was entirely at variance with James Device's statement. Master Potts then rose in his stirrups, and calling for silence, addressed the assemblage. "There stands the hut," he said, "and instead of being behind the clough, it is on one side of it, while the door certainly does not face the moor, neither is the rindle in front of the dwelling or near it, while the dyke, which is the main and important boundary between the two properties, runs above 200 yards further west than formerly. Now observe the original position of these marks, meres, and boundaries, that is, of this hut, this clough, this rindle, and this dyke, exactly corresponds with the description given of them by the man Device, who dwells in the place, and who is therefore a person most likely to be accurately acquainted with the country. And yet, though he has only been absent 2 days, changes the most surprising have taken place. Changes so surprising, indeed, that he scarcely knows the way to his own house, and certainly never could find the path which he has described to me as leading to Hook Cliff, since it is entirely obliterated. Observe further all these extraordinary and incomprehensible changes in the appearance of the country, and in the situation of the marks, meres, and boundaries, are favourable to Mistress Nutter, and give her the advantage she seeks over my honoured and honourable client. They are set down in Mistress Nutter's plan, it is true, but when, let me ask you, was that plan prepared? In my opinion, it was prepared first, and the changes in the land made after it, by diabolical fraud and contrivance. I am sorry to have to declare this to you, Master Nicholas, and to you, Master Richard, but such is my firm conviction." "And mine also," added Nowell. "And I have charged Mistress Nutter with sorcery and witchcraft, and on my return I will immediately issue a warrant for her arrest. Sparshot, I command you to attach the person of James Device for aiding and abetting her in her foul practices." "I will help you to take charge of him," said the reeve, riding forward. Probably this was done to give Jem a chance of escape, and if so, it was successful, for as the reeve pushed among his captors, and thrust Sparshot aside, the ruffian broke from them, and running with great swiftness across the moor, plunged into the clough and disappeared. Nicholas and Richard instantly gave chase, as did Master Potts, but the fugitive led them over the treacherous bog in such a manner as to baffle all pursuit. A second disaster here overtook the unlucky attorney, and damped him in his hour of triumph. Flint, who had apparently not forgotten or forgiven the joyous kicks he had recently received from the attorney's heels, came to a sudden halt by the side of the quagmire, and putting down his head, and flinging up his legs, cast him into it. While Potts was scrambling out, the animal galloped off in the direction of the clough, and had just reached it when he was seized upon by James Device, who suddenly started from the covert and vaulted upon his back. CHAPTER VIII.